You do testing to that extent, you're going to find more people, you're going to find more cases. So I said to my people, slow the testing down, please.
Now, this unempathetic, radically immoral buffoon of a man is saying the unthinkable after failing at such a prodigiously, uniquely prolific way where 120,000 people have died, 2.4 million people have been infected, and the infection rates are spiking in the country. And he is basically saying, slow down testing. Now, his administration came out and said, whoa, he didn't mean that. He was being sarcastic. But Trump comes back out and says, no, I wasn't being sarcastic. I was being straightforward when I said slow down testing. And he proceeded to give a bunch of lies to justify an unthinkable, astonishingly ridiculous perspective. I'm going to show you that clip. He's saying this as he's getting onto a helicopter. And he's talking to the press. And he's very clear. No, I want them to slow down the testing. We're showing too many cases. As if the issue is that the testing is creating kind of a glimmer of too many cases, as opposed to there being an actual, real, material difference in the number of people being infected, meaning in the adverse, meaning more people are indeed being infected with COVID-19 in the various countries, in the various states throughout the United States. But Trump is trying to make it like it's a testing issue. It's not a testing issue. Fact of the matter is the testing issue wouldn't affect the hospitalizations one iota, nor would it affect the number of ICUs that are being filled up to capacity in many of these states. I'm going to go through Trump's commentary, and I am going to debunk the nonsense that Trump is using to justify this insane perspective of shutting down or closing down the testing. And the reality of it is the political pressure that he got from this has basically called a halt to shutting down the federal agencies or the federal clinics that were being launched in Texas, because basically Texas is under assault. So much so the Republican governor of Texas have shut down the bars. Trump was shutting down the centers with it, while they were getting cases spiking to the tune of 6,000. Welcome to Late Night Soapbox. My name is Jamal Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. We like to say this content is brought to you by you, and I appreciate you the opportunity for allowing me to do it. So Trump is speaking with reporters, and Trump says the most unthinkable statement that you would ever think that would come out of a president's mouth after failing to this degree, where you have this many people that have lost their lives. By the way, more than twice that of the European Union. More than twice.
Kidding, or do you have a plan to slow down testing?
I don't kid. Let me just tell you, let me make it clear. We have got the greatest testing program anywhere in the world. We test better than anybody in the world. Our tests are the best in the world, and we have the most of them. By having more tests, we find more cases. We did 25 million tests. Think of that, 25 million. If you look at other countries, they did 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, big countries. We did 25 million, way more by double, triple, quadruple any other country.
The United States has not been doing quadruple testing more than any other country. That's not quite true. There are a few points on that. So first, the positivity rate has increased. Meaning the World Health Organization has basically said if you have a positivity of 5%, you shouldn't open your economy. Or it should be 5% or less before opening the economy. The United States is above 5%. We're pushing forward with opening the economy with no intention of backpedaling on that at all, regardless of what reality is throwing at us, saying that maybe we should. On top of the positivity rate, there are some states where the positivity rate is dramatically higher. to the tune of like 23% in a state like Arizona, for example, the state that Donald Trump, 21%, I'm sorry, the state that Donald Trump is about to have a rally. Also, there are other countries that have done just as many testing. We don't have 4 to 5 times that level, especially when you're getting into the issue of per capita testing. In the United States, there are 179 countries with fewer deaths than the United States. And as for the testing per capita, yeah, I wrote this down somewhere. Basically, it's not 4 and 5 times the per capita. Also, we need to understand we're the epicenter of this. So the number of tests that we should be doing should be higher, just by definition. But the notion of 4 times is nonsense. There are many other countries that have tested more people per capita than the United States, and the testing does not dramatically dwarf the other countries to the tune of 4 times. He pulled that out of his ass. Let's keep going. More Trump.
Therefore, we test, we're going to have more cases. By having more cases, it sounds bad. But actually what it is we're finding people. Many of those people aren't sick or very little. You know, they may be young people. But what's happened is because of all of the cases that we find, we have a very low mortality rate. Just about the best in the world.
That is nonsense on stilts. Nonsense on stilts. The idea that you would even say that. By the way, I was looking for this. 25 nations have more than 4 times the testing thing that Donald Trump is making the point of. Meaning, he's arguing that the United States has tested 4 times more than any other nations. There are 25 other nations that have tested more than the U.S. times 4. Or, you know what I mean. There are 25 other countries that basically show that to be an untrue statement. Let's say it that way. In regards to less death, the United States has 120,000 deaths, more dramatically so than any other nation. The idea you would say this is astonishing. And by the way, there are 179 countries with less death per capita. So if you want to talk about this as a whole, or if you want to talk about this as a per capita basis, that statement is prodigiously incorrect. Like a breathtaking lie that is just belied by the very basics of data. Just looking at a comparison between the U.S. and other nations, we have twice as many deaths in the European Union than the European Union. And on top of that, we make up 4% of the world population. 25% of the cases of coronavirus is in our country. And from the standpoint of deaths, 179 countries, less per capita. And we have more than any other nation, dramatically so. This statement is ridiculously false. What a buffoon.
So that's the advantage to the testing, along with other things. But just remember this. The reason we have more cases than other countries is because our testing is so much. Other countries do very little testing by comparison. So we're going to do this year, right now, up till yesterday, I think they told me, we're over 25 million tests. Other countries are at 2 million, 3 million. Here's what I say. Testing is a double.
There are 6 other countries with more than 3 million tests. And again, I need to point out that the reason those countries don't have more is because they don't need more. They weren't inundated with COVID-19 in the way that the United States was inundated with COVID-19. Donald Trump took forever to get testing ramped up. And when they finally got testing ramped up, they were finding more cases. But what's need to be understood here is he is lying on its face. The issue is not that there's more testing. That's nonsense. If there was just a testing issue, Texas wouldn't be trying to find additional beds in children's hospitals. Or, for that matter, New York wouldn't be trying to find additional beds in nursing homes and many of the states around the country. If this was the case, your ICUs wouldn't be overflowing. If this was the case, your positivity rate wouldn't be above 5%. I'm making the point that even if you tested every last person in the United States tomorrow, the number of hospitalizations would not budge one iota if those people weren't ill enough to be hospitalized. Your issue is a real material difference in the number of people who are getting infected by COVID-19. And that has everything to do with you reopening the economy and these states opening the economy early. Own your failure. The number of people that are going to die and lose their life is directly related to the policies that you push and that those states push in trying to reopen at light speed. The public itself is against this, by the way. The majority of the public is bothered by the notion of opening the economy too soon and having this exact case to which we're dealing with in the country, this resurgence of the virus, happen. Meaning the public understood what was at stake. The public ended up being right in what was at stake in opening too early, causing the resurgence. The public, even if it meant hurting the economy, wanted him to keep this economy closed or moderated in such a way as to not allow the propagation of the spread, meaning they wanted an emphasis and a priority to defeating the virus before restarting the economy. Trump had the opposite concerns. And in having the opposite concerns, this is where we are. Resurgence. The second wave, if you want to make the argument that the first wave even ended. This is basically where we are. And in the context of this, the president is basically saying, no, I was serious about stopping the testing. Unhinged. If you want people to get back to work, you need the ability to be able to test as many people as possible so you can tell people who are ill to stay home. No process would work if you try to send those people back blind, where you wouldn't know how many people were actually ill or infected with this particular virus, or for that matter, how many people were infectious and had the potential to pass this virus on, whether or not they themselves were showing symptoms. The tracking and the testing is infinitely important to restarting and reopening the economy. The idea that you would come on television after having 122,000 people dead, an abominable figure, failure en masse, exponentially, with all of these people paying for your failure with their lives. And you would come on and say something as unhinged as we need to cut down on testing. And yes, I was being serious about it. Astonishing, to put it mildly. Astonishing. By the way, Cool Blue 71, the Democrats don't want Medicare for all. That's true. They don't want Medicare for all. But the reason why I deride them with that is because if 88% of the public is backing it, my question is, why are you so rigid ideologically that you get 88% of people saying we want this in the Democratic Party and 70% outside the party? You're in the middle of a pandemic with Medicare for all being judged in the fires of the last several years. 20 candidates attacking the policy, and the policy still comes up with 88% Democratic support. And again, in the middle of a pandemic with 30 million people without a job, and the Affordable Care Act being under assault by the Trump administration, all during a pandemic. And you can't bring yourself, for ideological reasons, to unify the party organically and to stop a man that you consider the walking apocalypse. It's irrational on its face. That's why I use it derisively. Like, share, and subscribe. Obi Alfred, Trump has to go, Jamal. I'm fully cognizant of how much the piece of shit Biden is. Trump must go. Well, Obi Alfred, you just need to convince a lot of other people to get rid of him. The question that you need to ask to your Democratic leaders and representatives is very basic. Trump is abysmal. He's going to end the world. He's going to destroy democracy itself. He is going to obliterate space and time. But we don't believe that that's worthy enough, that that's legitimate enough of a reason to back a policy with 88% support. Or for that matter, school loans, meaning getting rid of school loans, paying off student loans, and opening state universities or public university to be free of charge, or a wealth tax. All of these things were dramatically popular. None of these things were things that Joe Biden backed. And to make that point that much more clear, Joe Biden is just running as the shit candidate. I mean, right now, the New York Siena has him polling with a 14-point lead. When you go down, though, and you look at the actual numbers, you see this. Look at this part. Right here. Very favorable. Trump. Age 18 and 29, right? Very unfavorable. Trump has high unfavorabilities. All the way down, with that number switching slightly when you get to 45 to 64 and 65 and older, meaning the older demographic is a demographic that he tends to get more so. And even that demographic, he's suffered in regards to the way he's gone about the program. Obvious reasons. If you are older and Trump is saying, open the economy, well, you're putting their lives at stake because they are uniquely susceptible to dying as a result of this virus. So that's where that comes from, right? But look at Biden. Very favorable. 20, 20, 20. Again, the older demographic is more apt to be favorable for Biden. But the catch is, look at what's taking place. You're seeing Biden taking over an older demographic from Trump regarding favorability. That's a sea change. Very unfavorables. But look at favorables among most. 21, 29. Very favorable for registered voters. 26. He's bland. He's a bland default stand-in that offers nothing. You can't blame people for not voting for Joe Biden if Joe Biden is not doing the things necessary to unify the party. That's on Joe Biden. That's not on anybody else. To say that Trump must go, then you need to deal with your party and your presidential candidate to ensure that that candidate backs the policies that are necessary to drive and create enthusiasm to organically unify the party in order to get those people to the polls. That's your dilemma. That's not my thing. That's not other people who are not Democrats thing. That is uniquely a challenge and a defect within the context of the Democratic Party that they need to work out. If Trump is indeed going to end democracy itself, then it is irrational and obscene for you not to accept a policy that 88% of other Democrats support. If that would unify the party, it's obscene. If you not willing to universally get rid of student loans, something that, again, a majority of voters support and a high majority of the people in the party support, then you are not being serious about rationally wanting to unify the party. I hope you get what I'm saying here. The issue is entirely and uniquely one for Joe Biden and the Democratic Party to reconcile, not for anybody else. Like, share, and subscribe.